Okay, so violin primarily being a lyrical instrument, Vox Humana, it is quite important to learn how to control the longbow. That's why we practice open strings so much, or at least we say we do or try to. Um, and yeah, bow control to violin is as important as, or longbow control, is as important as ball control is in soccer, right? I mean, if you have good or bad ball control, that's like everything in soccer, right? Same thing with violin. Your ability to control long bows is absolutely critical to probably the most important part of violin playing. Besides all the pyrotechnical things that you can do to impress people, those fancy technical tricks, the ability to simply draw a long bow nice and clean. Simple, right? And also the ability to change the speed and the weight of the bow. Like for example, we could start light, too light maybe, heavier. Just change the weight, maybe keep it heavier longer. And yeah, so basically bow control is very important, and is in one of the most important parts, probably the most important violin playing, which is lyrical melodic part of violin playing. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the key points in practicing open strings. I'm assuming that by this time, watching this video, most people have a decent understanding of how to hold the instrument and the bow and all that kind of stuff. But I will go into a little bit of mechanics and what I feel and what I think you should feel when doing some of the long bows, as well as key points to think about as you practice long bows to improve them. And after I've explained how to practice the basic longbow quite effectively, then some little advancements on that to basically improve how should I say it? Expressive control of the bow, and then finally end with some more conceptual ideas, ways of thinking about the long bow stroke. I would think I'm trying to. I mean, there's so many different little exercises you can do, little tricks. This school of violin playing, that great teacher. There's so many little things. However, I think I've tried to boil down everything into kind of the bare necessities, and hopefully, yeah, this is slightly helpful. So in practicing open strings, I would say that one of the most important absolute musts is that no matter what, you should always be looking for something. And this is quite important because open strings seems like a very very simple thing. It's very boring if done wrong, and you can fall into the trap of being basically busy and being unproductive. So let's say you've convinced yourself, despite all the boredom, to do open strings, and you just kind of do open strings, long bow. It's very easy to fall into the temptation of just, okay, I'll just go back and forth. It's just relatively clean. Okay, good, done, boom. The problem with that is that open strings, with anything, it's the same thing. If you're brushing your teeth, right? If I just go like, I'm just sleepy, I'm just gonna go like this. brush my teeth back and forth a few times, and then boom, done. I've noticed that most people who brush like that, their teeth are not as clean, and I'm one of those lazy people. The people who have really clean teeth, they think about where they're brushing, how they're brushing, the shape of their teeth, if they have something in there, all that kind of stuff, and they actually clean their teeth. And people who brush like that usually have a much cleaner dental set. And so it's exactly the same thing with long bows. I mean, if you're just doing it, you're probably going to end up like the person who just scrapes the front teeth over and over for like 30 seconds and then spits out the toothpaste. And your open strings will be at that level. When I do open strings well, I like to think of a beautiful sound, because the actual natural raw sound of the violin is something that, in my opinion, the human biology can actually appreciate, because it's a wooden sound, and when drawn well, it produces a resonant and fairly warm and pleasant natural sound. So it's looking for this sound in the violin. To help this, you could try to recall a beautiful sound that you heard when somebody was playing the violin. You could go through kind of the painstaking process of, finding a violinist that truly produces a sound, in your opinion, that you love listening to. That's the best. If you have that kind of sound and your inner ears have awakened to the beauty of that kind of sound, then this is the best, right? Then your inner ear has awakened to what to listen to, and you will be looking for that. Even if you're not looking for something, if you don't have like a big final picture sound kind of thing in your mind, at least think about some of the mechanical things that you can look for as you practice. So that's the first thing. Looking for something, looking and searching and listening for something as you practice the open strings, whatever it may be. Okay, and the next step in drawing the down bow and the up bow, I just want to discuss what it should feel like as you pull and push the bow. I'm assuming that at this point you're aware of how the upper arm engages in the long bows. In the up bow, the upper arm leads more. Down bow, it leads a little bit, and then after it can go no further, then the hand and the fingers and the wrist lead the way downward. Okay. Now, in pulling the down bow, they say always pulling, it's important to feel the pull, okay, with these two middle fingers. And despite saying, whatever somebody might try to tell you, like, oh, you got to feel it, push with the palm of your hand, wrist, it's hard to feel it while playing the violin, because the violin is not physically stimulating enough to actually feel it. One way to feel it is you could hang your two middle fingers from your other hand and pull down, and you'll feel, okay, if done properly, you'll feel, the pull through here, a little bit through here, and a little bit into the forearm. That's the kind of a pull, right? And one way to feel how it would feel like in doing a down bow is to actually pull that resisting hand like this, pull it, okay? Pretend you're doing a down bow and pull in that direction. So down bow, down bow, down bow, down bow, down bow, down bow, and you'll feel that pull, okay? Another way to feel the pull here, let me try like this, is to push against the palm of the hand. Again, pretend you're doing a down bow. Push against it with the palm of your hand, and force that down bow motion all the way opening up, right? And you'll feel that resistance here, okay, in that wrist palm kind of area like this, okay? And that feeling is that area and that feeling you feel there is the feeling that you should be feeling on a down bow. Now, So if that's what the middle fingers should be approximately in the palm of the hand and wrist should be approximately feeling. You might have realized that when you draw the bow, okay, if you put weight on the bow, obviously you need to hold the bow. So realistically, as you put weight into the bow, your grip is tightening, okay? So as much weight as you put down, there has to be a counter force, right? And the opposing thumb comes to the rescue and provides that counter force, okay? Now, it's very important, I think, at this point to realize that the curved thumb, okay, is very important. Oh, and before we even get to that, actually, where the thumb is in relation to the middle fingers is quite important, because if the thumb, okay, is far from the middle fingers, it cannot provide good. It cannot basically act as an opposing thumb and provide that counter force. Okay, then the grip will not be stable, and something like this obviously will force the bow to be unstable, and the same thing here. Okay, so as close as you can get, the thumb and the middle finger to be, that's the best. I think Carl Fisher recommends that you have the thumb slightly behind the middle finger. That does feel the best, right? In terms of the counter force and the grip itself. However, for me, I found that I enjoy having my middle finger slightly behind the thumb, because the black square here of the frog provides a lot of contact for my fingers. Okay, and this increased contact makes the grip very comfortable, and it's close enough to the thumb so that you can actually feel the grip. Okay, and that's very important. Feeling the strong grip is important. Okay, in any case, it should be as close as possible. The thumb and the middle finger should be as close as possible so that they can provide the counter force to each other. Now the thumb should be curled, and this is really important. The curling of the thumb is like an absolute. It doesn't matter what school of violin playing you're from. I mean, it doesn't matter what. It's just you have to, and that's because if you think about it, you have to put weight into the bow, at some point, right? In order to play expressively, you got to push and pull the sound and create all those emotions, right? If the thumb is flat, think about it, the physical structure of a straight thumb is very weak in terms of providing opposing thumb like power, like force, counter force, right? If you want to try squeezing yourself with flat hold like this, it's very hard. No matter how hard you squeeze, it doesn't really hurt. Okay, that's because this is a weak way of gripping anything. And imagine if you're trying to play the violin with a flat thumb, and you're putting some weight into the bow, and your thumb is trying to counter that weight, and hold up the stick. It's going to create a lot of, your thumb has to be really strong, providing a lot of force, okay, because it's a structurally weak shape. And in order for it to actually provide enough force, it's going to have to come up with tons of tension and just force tons of tension right here. And the tension in and of itself is bad, right? Like the tension, you can't, it hurts, injury, blah, blah, blah. But also, it's just no end to the list of technical problems. Just by tightening it up, it reduces the mobility of the hand and forces, it basically incapacitates the hand in doing some of the most basic techniques of the bow arm. Okay, so it's very important that the thumb is curled. It's near the middle fingers, okay? And there. It's very important that you have this grip. And once you have this grip, as you pull down, you will feel the pull in the palm of your hand, okay, the wrist, and in the middle fingers. but you also feel that whole grip tightening. And it's good that you feel that. You feel the thumb, okay, and the middle fingers. But because the structure, if you're holding it correctly, is strong, the grip simply feels like a strong, sturdy grip. It doesn't feel like any tension. That's the difference between good posture and bad posture. Whenever you put force into a good posture, it just feels strong, okay, which is good. That's very different from tension, which comes from bad posture. That's bad. Okay, so this is the feeling you should be feeling. The pull here, and then that grip tightening on the down bow. And as you get near the tip, you should be feeling a little more pressure, okay, leverage pressure onto the index finger. So you'll be still strong grip, okay, and a little bit of index finger pressure going on as you near the tip. Okay, now at the tip you would just reverse direction, and you would lead with your upper arm all the way. All the way to the frog, and while just maintaining a strong core grip. Okay. So on the up bow, I would probably feel a little bit of pressure. I know that's a terrible word, but I'll just use it. It's easier to understand in the beginning. A little bit of index finger pressure, as well as the strong core grip, the strength of that and the pressure together as I do the up bow. So I feel all of that happening. Okay, so after you realize, what you should feel as you do the up bow and the down bow, and you understand that the down bow, you lead with your wrist and your hand moving down, and up bow you lead with your upper arm. Next step is to incorporate, think about, and perfect the figure 8 bowing. Okay, so as you draw the bow at first, you'll be just drawing parallel to the bridge, right? Okay, as straight as possible. But you'll realize that it's actually better to bring the hand a little in towards your face at the frog and push a little out at the tip. I'm trying to exaggerate just to demonstrate. But the reason for this is at the frog, let's start at the frog, okay? If you're even slightly pointed out, the moment where you turn the bow direction and become a down bow, okay, quickly turns into a moment of sliding, right? Whereas if you tuck the hand in a little bit, there's no sliding happening. Okay, that in itself is much better. It also basically provides better traction, okay, contact with the bow and the string, and reduces any unnecessary sliding around. And also it counters the natural tendency of a lot of people, human beings at first, as you come up, to stiffen the arm and just come up like this and play like this, right? So it counters that by pulling the bow in. So it's in a way it's a safety measure, and on the other hand, it also improves the quality of sound, contact, and and such of the bowing itself. Now, when you're at the tip, right? At the tip, you should push out. Okay, out. And again, it counters, it's a safety measure because it counters the natural tendency to do this. Okay, swing and do I don't know what they are, almost like chest flies, kind of. I don't know, just like you're warming up in the park, old men warming up in the park or something. But in any case, it counters that movement, okay? And also at the tip, if you come out like this, the contact becomes weak. But if you push out like this, the contact is actually much stickier. And so again, it's a safety measure, and again, the traction and contact one is better when you do this at the tip. So you should incorporate a little bit of in, a little bit of out at the tip, and a little bit of bring it in, a little bit in. Okay, I'm trying to exaggerate a little bit. In reality, it should be just a teeny tiny bit, just enough so that if somebody knows what you're doing, they can notice it. But to a beginner or somebody who's not really paying attention or aware, it shouldn't look like you're just like doing really weird crooked bows. It should be very little bit. Okay? And when done continuously, in, out, it kind of makes it look a little bit like figure 8. That's why it's called the figure 8 bowing. Okay. Now at this point, okay, let me see what time it is. Okay, I already told you this. At this point, it's probably important to discuss the bow change slightly. And with the bow change, the key point is to not change three factors, the key factors of the long bow, which is the speed, the weight, and the direction. Okay. Now the speed, weight, and direction are basically the three ingredients that create the bow stroke, right? Now, if you keep these three constant, okay, and only change the direction, that's the best way to keep the bow change smooth. If you think about it, a lot of the problems in bow changes come from just messing up those three factors. Here are some common problems, right? You mismanage the weight of the upper arm, something like that, right? And by doing so, again, see, it's a jerky movement. You're changing the weight and the speed of the bow, okay? Also, if you're trying to be overly expressive with your fingertip, create some weird finger jerky movement. That, once again, is a problem of changing the speed and weight of the bow as you change the direction. Another common problem is to actually lift the bow. It's almost like at the end of every bow stroke, people feel like they need to breathe. Breathe. Okay? And sometimes it doesn't even mean that you're actually leaving the string with your hair. Sometimes people just simply lift the pressure of the bow so much that the sound basically sounds like you're leaving the string, and cutting the sound short. Another common mistake is as you near the end of the bow to slow down too much. Like, oh, it's the end of the bow, so you slow down. Oh, it's the end of the bow, so you slow down. Okay? And another common mistake, well, obviously, if you slow down, everybody's gonna tell, oh, bow change coming up, and then everybody's gonna hear the bow change. Also, the wrong in and out. For example, instead of coming in at the frog and then out at the tip, you do the natural wrong way. So out at the frog, okay, tucking the hand in towards you, and the bow falling out at the tip. Okay, a little bit of that happening sometimes can create massive problems. And then the key to smooth bow changes the key is to keep those three factors consistent, right? The speed, the weight, and the placement of the bow. And then it's to actually practice. Okay, same thing in soccer. Like you would think that, I understand it, so now I get it. But no. I mean, those great soccer players, they practice juggling the ball for hours and hours, so much. They practice, they play all the time to increase their touch. And even the basic dribble in soccer, right? The left, right, inside of the foot kind of dribble where you're trying to improve your own dribbling touch, right? I mean, the more you practice it, the more your touch improves. So same thing here. The more you understand these concepts, okay, and the more you're able to actually observe what's happening. So as you're doing it, some people, they don't even see that the speed is changing. So the stick could literally go beyond, and then the stick could change the speed. But sometimes I notice that people literally don't see or realize that some of those factors are actually changing. And that obviously is a problem. But once you can observe that and pay attention to, okay, literally, physically, the speed, okay, is actually visible. The weight, okay, is actually very easy to tell, if as long as you're paying attention to the feeling. It's a physical feeling. And then the placement, again, you can just look in the mirror. You could also look down on your bow from where you're playing, but so easy to tell if you're kind of just focused and not just kind of zoning out, right? And so after you're able to observe those things, practice, and that in and of itself, while remembering those key concepts, will perfect your bow changes, okay? Now at this point, it's you should be applying all these ideas, thinking about feeling the core grip, the pull, the push and the pull and the leading of the upper arm, and the in and out, and keeping the three factors constant for the open, the bow change. And you should just be playing just nice, normal, long bows in 4 beats each, like whole notes, over and over, trying to get all those parts of the long bow consistent. The next step, once you're good at all those things, is to introduce swells to your long bows. So swells, ability to put extra weight and thus increase emotion or emotion intensity or dynamic. Okay, so instead of just playing crescendo, more weight. Okay, so I'm changing the weight and speed of the bow. Practicing that and being able to do that, at command is very important. So you can do the simple longbow, and then put a little bit of weight, and it's not a good word again, pressure, but you can use it at first. And then release all that weight and pressure, so you get one big hairpin swell. Right? And it's very important to realize that as you put the weight or the pressure into the bow, you should move closer to the bridge, and then move farther away as you relax. Okay? And so that's how you would do one swell with the pressure and placement near the bridge. And then you would try moving on to 2 of those swells per bow stroke, and 3. And now as you do 2 or 3, it's important that you don't make these swells into accents. So don't do. Okay? Instead, swell. See, it's a little more gradual. Okay? And that's the key. Now, after you practice that type of open strings, and now you have more control of the dynamic and intensity, okay, of your sound itself. The next step is to do the son filet long bows while kind of emphasizing each end of the bow. So you would do a long bow, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing at the frog, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, and so on. Okay, this is good for many reasons. I mean, it covers all the basics. You can think of all the things that we talked about so far, and focus on the most appreciated parts of the bow, the ends of the bow. which are so important because with those like last 5 or 6 inches of the bow, just entire color palettes just literally open up for you, for me, as wannabe artists. Okay, cool. A little side note is that as you develop the long bows, other bow strokes actually help the long bows. So not before. So as you learn, like for example, détaché, okay, and you learn the modern one where you use your smaller muscles more, flat hair, good contact with the string, and it's not a more detached, okay? As you do kind of more modern détaché, it's easier to feel that core middle grip with détaché because that added pressure or weight, right, as you do that stroke, okay, really helps you feel what it's like to put all that power into those middle fingers. And feeling that also can in turn help feel the middle fingers as they pull the down bow and then as they pull the up bow. So détaché, okay, since it heightens the sensation of those middle fingers, core grip, it helps. Collé, requiring the really flexible use of and powerful use, deliberate use of the smaller muscles. Opening that up helps make the longer bows more fluid and natural as well. Like ricochet, right? Helps a lot. Because as you do ricochet, what's happening is the wood of the stick, the stick is always bouncing, right? But ricochet and just practicing bouncing it deliberately will help you realize that actually what we should be doing with the bow is letting the bow naturally vibrate, shake, bounce, and all that stuff, and just control enough of it, stimulate it enough, control directed enough to accomplish our goals, okay? And so that heightens the awareness and the physical sensation and touch to actually do that, to actually stimulate the bow and the violin, but then let it free so that it can do what it does best. Okay, so like practicing ricochet. Okay, or all those of when you use ricochet, will help you feel or kind of liberate the bow without suffocating it. Okay. So in any case, that plus other basic bow grip drills, like the very beginner ones that I talk about, beginning of my series here for Noah, those are very effective. As I probably mentioned before in a different video, the basic bow grip is so important. It's like, baseball and golf. If your swing is just terrible, if your grip and your swing are terrible, then no matter what you do or you think you're doing, that basic posture and grip will prevent you from reaching much higher levels of success. So that should cover some of the most important ideas in practicing open strings. I would practice open strings as much as possible while looking for something, the mechanics, the sound, okay? And then there's just some personal conceptual ideas. The idea of trying to put weight, power into the bow stroke as you release it and not suffocate the bow and violin and all, has been expressed in many different ways. For example, some people say, make it feel like scooping ice cream. You follow the shape of the bow, you scoop, but so you put a little pressure, stimulation, weight in, but then you also let go. That's a scooping motion, okay? Other people say, hey, follow the shape of the bow. The bow itself is kind of curved, so you put weight into the bow and then you kind of release it, okay? French teachers, I think, used to say something like, cut through the strings. This is a very interesting feeling because when you're cutting through butter, let's say, okay, with a knife, it's a very different sensation from pressing something. It's a weird sensation where it's the butter and all kind of gives, and yet you are pushing down and it kind of gives. And it's a unique feeling. It's very different from pressing something, right? And so this feeling of cutting through the strings helps a lot of people to feel a little more like they're putting weight in, they're focusing their bow and stimulating, creating friction. However, they're not suffocating the strings. So that's another way to think of it. Think of your bow as a lightsaber or a knife, and you're cutting through something. Okay. And then so for me, when I practice open strings, I love to look for pure resonant sound, okay? Something that is just open and free. That's terrible. Okay, I think I need more rosin. In any case, I want the sound. I want to feel the wood vibrate, the back piece. And always have this open and resonant sound, always full of as much life as possible. Now this will depend on how good your violin is too, but to feel that sizzling life in the sound, okay, instead of like, which is strong, but as you can see, there's no life in the sound. There's no vibrations in the sound itself, but if you draw it more nicely with attention to the release of the sound, you realize that you can really create friction and stimulation to allow this to truly vibrate and resonate, and same thing with the bow. Okay, so that should be everything. I would probably practice open strings every single day, at least 5 minutes consistently every day, looking and listening for that sound. And yeah, okay, there we go. And any questions, let me know. Bye.